we both think everything will and probably should win. It has the momentum going, lots of great performances. I think everybody's going to vote for that. Elvis, I don't care about Elvis. I lived through Elvis. I didn't like Elvis. He just stole Black culture and moved his hips as a white boy. So he's off my list. You know, Top Gun, that's nostalgia. The reason it made so much money at the box office, even if it was shitty footage, it still would have done well because that is nostalgia. It is Tom Cruise. It had money behind it. Not a great movie, but again, great production. Triangle of Sadness, I watched till they got on the boat and I just couldn't get any farther. I was like, I want to watch
until they got on the boat.
You know what I love about people? Their hearts. And talking about movies. Welcome to the Heartbeat Film Podcast. This podcast is all about getting to know the hearts of the people who make the art we love. I'm Jan.
I'm Hayru. And I'm Chris. Thanks to everybody who's joining us. Let's start the show.
Big plane crashes, dramatic chase scenes, nonlinear storytelling, and epic biographies. This year's Oscars is one for the books. Join us as we chat our favorite Oscar movies with our friend, producer Linda Burns, as we discuss the PGA, screeners, how films are selected, and what gets our pulses going as moviegoers. And don't forget to join us for the after party as Linda breaks down her job as a producer and the details that it involves. Welcome to our Oscar episode. We're ready for our close-up, Mr. DeVille.
Okay, listeners, before we get too far into it, I feel like we need to kind of make a special announcement that you may or may not know about. The fact is, Linda Burns is our first return guest. She was the OG, the original episode, first guest we ever had on the show. And so if you missed that episode, maybe go back and watch it. Maybe don't, because we didn't know what we were doing and we were just navigating this all thing. And we're starting to get our act together, starting to get our sea legs together. But overall, before we get into the Oscars, I just want to announce and tell everyone that we are so thankful and so honored to have our first return appearance of Linda Burns, the amazing producer. Thank you so much for being here with us to share your experience and your knowledge.
Yeah, my pleasure. Of course, it's no red flag that I'd be the only one who comes back.
We're actually thinking that you'll be the only return guest. We're just going to have you every couple of months over and over. We're never going to have another return guest. You're the only return guest.
I like it.
Yep.
It's super exciting. Yes, we get to refer to you as friend of the show, Linda Burns now. Yeah, we're very excited to have you back. But yeah, so we're jumping in with our Oscar extravaganza here today. I was mentioning a little bit ago to these guys, I've never been like a huge fan of the Oscars. I don't really watch them on TV or any of that stuff. I've seen a handful of this year's Best Picture nominees, which is what we're going to talk about in a second. But I'm curious about what your take is on the Oscars. Are you a fan? Do you do like an Oscar party? Do you host? Do you go to the Oscar parties? What's your take on the Oscars?
I used to work on the Oscars. Did you guys know?
I didn't know that.
We didn't know. We should have done our research.
Yes, you should have. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, for about 10 years, so Turner, TNT, which everybody knows, they have TNT LA. Most people think, oh, Los Angeles. No, it's TNT Latin America, Cartoon Network Latin America. And they had a pre-show on the red carpet. And I did I think they still do it, but I did about 10 years of it. And it was essentially, I mean, before they moved to the current location, you could go inside. So I could sit and watch people rehearse, which was fab. Like I saw a very hungover Ben Affleck rehearsing his stuff, and you could just go sit and watch the celebrities come and go and watch stuff set up, which was awesome. But then after 9/11 and when they moved to the new location, they decided that it's better just to keep everybody out. Nothing could leak. Nobody would talk about anything. So I would just sit outside on the red carpet and watch all of the techno cranes rehearse, because you've got techno cranes up on buildings across the street. I love techno cranes. So I would just sit there like a fangirl and watch them rehearse all the cranes. But no, I have never held an Oscar party. I don't go to Oscar parties. I liked the hosts opening because there was a lot of really clever openings that were done. A lot of great comedians. So I think they were always fun to watch. I liked hearing a lot of the speeches. But when it comes to, do I think these are the best movies? No. And we can get into more of that later. But no, I don't throw big parties for the Oscars, nor do I go to them.
Can you walk me through a deeper understanding of kind of not what the Oscars is, but what is the importance that it holds to the industry, and why is it something that should be celebrated and should be paid attention to, and like what does it mean for us as a community and as American filmmakers to have the Oscars? Why is it important?
I mean, a lot of people hate award shows because they're considered kind of popularity contests. But I think the best picture is often something that a lot of people haven't seen. So it gives new life to lower budget independent films. You know, a film like the Tom Cruise film, do I think it belongs in best picture? I mean, they did some amazing camera work on those planes. So from an ingenuity and stunts producing aspect, I think they did a lot of brilliant things. Is it a great movie? Nah, it has a lot of problems. It's just, you know, slightly misogynistic. Again, a whole nother conversation.
As we talked about in episode
but-
1, in case anyone's interested, we talked about that whole thing.
I really think that a celebration of the arts is important. We celebrate sports. Everybody, you know, people who don't give a crap about the Super Bowl, they may just turn in to see Rihanna or Prince or whoever is the halftime. But you know, I don't care about baseball, but I watch the NBA playoffs. I don't watch the full term of soccer, but I watch Women's World Cup. So, you know, I'm an NFL, I'm kind of coming off the NFL train, but when we look at all of these sporting events where we uplift all of these sports stars that really oftentimes are not good role models either, I feel like a celebration of the arts is important on a national level. And I think award shows have relevancy. I think the SAG Awards really tend to be more about great performances. The Producers Awards tend to be more about well-produced movies. The DGA Awards, you know, are about some, you know, below the line. You know, the problem with the Oscars is they've gotten rid of costume and wardrobe and the technical things, the real celebration of behind the scenes. So I think it's, you know, it's a lofty idea that we get the best movies. Yeah. It's not, how can you watch every movie out there to pick them? But I still think it's important. And I think a lot of movies that speak to underserved audiences get a run back in the theater. So maybe they played in the beginning, but got a lot of critical acclaim, but didn't get a lot of box office money. Yeah. So it allows these films to be celebrated, lifted up, and shared with a new audience that if we didn't have the award ceremonies, those things wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I love what you said about that, where it's like an opportunity for certain indie films and stuff that you wouldn't normally see or watch to get the recognition that they deserve. And for me, tell me because this is almost the way I rationalize it in my mind, and you can tell me your take on this and let me know if I'm accurate, because I don't watch it every year, but my perception of it is this, because I think from the artist mindset, you have to care about the craft more than the accolades or what people think, right? And so like the artist shouldn't care. Like Chris should rightly so be like, I'm not going to pay attention. I want to focus on my craft. I want to be amazing, and I'm not going to let anyone else move that too much, right? But then there's a point too where it's like almost, I feel like as a producer, I have to recognize that there's a place where, like, you know, we talked about like art meets business, things like that. We talked about that before. And it's almost like, for me, like I see the Oscars as like the politics of it, where it's like people that are in business and have money and want to finance things, they want an opportunity to recognize people or have status or celebrate or whatever. And so we kind of somehow organize this thing where we allow people to say, yes, you're recognized, and we're going to give you special acclaim. And then the business people and the funding and all of that can also associate with those things. And it's almost like, I see it more as like politics, which is a necessary element of our industry. And as a producer, like we have to accept and sit in the middle and be like, you know, is it the perfect representation of art? No. Is it the perfect representation of the film industry business? No. Is it necessary for both of those things to touch and celebrate together and recognize and shake hands? Yes, I think so. Is that probably accurate, or am I way out of my loop? You disagree. Please disagree.
Say yes. Well, I don't necessarily disagree, but, you know, I mean, Oscar campaigns are a real thing. You know, there's an actress who kind of got into trouble because her friend went off politicking and said, hey, you should vote for this. People didn't watch that movie. Nobody even heard of that movie for the most part. Her performance might be Oscar worthy, but that was kind of seen as uncouth. But Weinstein and every studio has been pumping money into Oscar campaigns. You know, if you go to IMDb, you'll see for your consideration, you know. So it is a big money push to get recognition to help increase sales. So yes, it is all about the business. But I mean, the reason I watch it is because it's a celebration of my industry. And even though I don't maybe agree with everything, I, for the most part, am amused by the speeches, whether they are bizarre and flighty and drunkish, or whether they are serious and tear-filled and emotion-filled. You know, I mean, it's a celebration of our industry. And I think people who are in our industry should be watching. It's just like reading the trades, you know, understanding why things are popular, what other people wanted to see, what they didn't want to see. I don't know. I think I think they should exist. They are imperfect, as everything in our world is. But, you know, maybe you guys should watch them. They're pretty amusing.
Well, it's hard for me to watch award shows, or especially like the Oscars or something like that, because I feel like I get a lot of anxiety. You know what I mean? Like I get anxiety about, I don't know, that space and like people feeling, I just get anxiety. It's hard for me to watch them. But when I do, I get really inspired. Like when Halle Berry won for Best Supporting Actor or Best Actress, I feel like.
Best Actress.
Yeah, a long time ago. And then Good Will Hunting, when they won, that was another example of an indie film that got all of this renewed energy from being nominated. I remember watching them win, and there was a moment there where I realized I could do that. Like, I think for a long time, I was like, I knew I wanted to be a director, and I knew that I wanted to write, but I thought I wanted to write books. And when I saw Good Will Hunting and that paired with their screenplay, and then seeing these young guys that were around my age win, it just solidified for me, oh, I can be a screenwriter and write my own films and make my own movies. So I think in those ways, seeing people that are either just seeing the underdog or just seeing people living their dreams and then being recognized for it and hearing their story, I think can change a lot of people's lives as well.
I wish the short films got more attention for that reason. I don't think it was the last year I did them, but it's towards the end of me working on that show. I had two friends win. So a movie that JD worked on, trying to think of what year. It had to have been around 2004-ish, maybe. But JD worked on the movie The Accountant, which was a short film. It was 35 minutes. And that played Atlanta Film Society or Atlanta Film Festival and won there, which helped it qualify for an Academy Award nomination. And it got one and it won. And then my friend, who used to be a second AC in town, who moved back to New York, she wanted to get out of camera and go into production. This was long before the incentives, and nobody here was giving her a shot. So she moved back home to New York. And one of the first things she worked on was a documentary short film, and it got nominated for an Academy Award. And I'm on the red carpet watching these friends of mine come down, and then I'm watching the awards in the trailer, and then they both win. You talk about inspiring, like that was cool. And I think it's those kind of stories that speak to people like us, but we aren't the Academy Awards audience. A lot of it is everyday people who just love movies, you know? So for them, it's a whole different audience. And, you know, it's got to be weird. I mean, we always say, like, you know, create what you know, but really think about who your audience is. But you look at this award show and who is your audience? You know, it's an array of people. So how do you make all those people happy? You know, you can't possibly make them all happy in terms of content and what you do. And, you know, woke Hollywood, oh my God, somebody might say something that's, you know, slightly liberal or encourages all kinds of people to do something. Oh no. But I mean, there's chaos. Like, I love watching well, before they became so problematic, the Foreign Press Awards, because everybody was always drunk and it was always fun to watch that, you know? Same with, oh God, what is the Independent Film Awards right before the Oscars?
Spirit Awards.
Independent, yeah, Indie Spirit Awards. Like that's another fun one because you get, I mean, nowadays it's way bigger than it used to be, but when it was in like a shitty little tent with folding chairs and they got all the amazing actors to come out and they were just more themselves because there weren't the TV cameras, there wasn't an international audience. And sitting in that room or watching that take place, I think is way more inspiring to people like us, where the big show, now it's all about the big Hollywood names and it's less easy for us to aspire to that because it's like, are we really going to be the next Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg? Probably not. Not at this
but probably
point,
so.
If we're 20, but you know, at this point, we got a lot of ground to make up.
Can you walk us through kind of, because I'm like chomping at the bit to talk about some of these movies as we've already anticipated. You know, we've watched a bunch of them and I can't wait to kind of like digest them as we always do. But can you walk us through kind of what your role is in this Oscar, the Oscars, and like kind of like lay the groundwork for kind of what you're looking at and what you're examining and what you're preparing for and doing? And what does it look like?
Sure. So I'm not a member of the Academy, so I don't vote on the Oscars. I vote on the Producers Guild because I'm in the Producers Guild. So the Producers Guild and my husband's in the Directors Guild. So, and you know, most of the bigger guilds, the above the line guilds or positions, get screeners, and we get anything that anybody wants to send us for our consideration to vote on. And then I didn't vote.
Can we pause there? Can we pause there?
Yeah.
So the Producers Guild, like, what is the Producers Guild, and why did you become a member of it?
So if I did features and television, I would more likely be a member of the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, because as a production manager, that is a DGA position. But I did independent films, but chose not to do studio features. So because I was in commercial world, I am not a DGA member. I'm a Producers Guild member. And that was my independent films because they got distribution. So it was the only guild at the time that I really could get into because the DGA doesn't cover producers. And as a production manager doing commercials, that's not really the privy of, or that doesn't fall under the DGA. So I chose the Producers Guild. It made more sense.
Was it difficult to get in? Is there like a criteria of how many films because you have a long list of films that you've done. Was there a point where it was like, okay, now it's accessible and now I can go for it? Or did you kind of go right away and try?
I became a member, I think before we started the Atlanta chapter, or maybe I joined when we started the Atlanta chapter. It was right around then. So the PGA, all the guilds and unions pretty much are out of LA or New York. And Atlanta decided there are so many producers coming here and so many young up and coming producers that we should have our own chapter. And we started one. And I'm pretty sure I might have joined then because any union you join is a pricey union, right?
Yeah.
Chris, you're in 600, right?
I'm actually not. No, but I was on the
I'm not
verge
big
for.
ass chick yet.
Yeah, no, I was on the verge for a couple of projects that were potentially something that I could be a part of, but yeah, I've kind of dodged the bullet to a certain degree because I'm a director, yeah, and I don't really shoot that kind of stuff as a DP.
Yeah, you could join the DGA as a director for commercials, which would stratosphere you up quite a bit.
Right.
That definitely will bring bigger budget stuff because then, because you're working on things that are in the union shop, but those checks they're big. So I think I might have joined when we started that because I'm pretty sure it was like half price. Like I had to write a $750 check instead of a $1,500 check. But you had, I think, and I never like to quote like what the union and guild requirements are because they change.
Yeah.
But I think it was like 2 films that had gotten distribution. So I did both of my use my producer stuff and my like associate producer and some of the other credits. Plus I'd done some like lower budget TV shows that still would qualify as well. But it was not that difficult to get in. It's just, you have to have distribution, like film festivals aren't enough. You have to have, I want to say it's nationwide or in theaters. It might even be theatrical distribution, but that may have changed now because of all the streaming stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I probably, if I would have gone into features, I would have joined both eventually, because I would have gone in as a UPM. So I would have joined the DGA, and then I would have worked my way up to producer, and then I would have joined the Producers Guild, and I would have kept in both unions. I mean, I have a friend who's in sound. He's in the sound union. He's a PGA member. He's a DGA member. I think he might, I don't think it's 600, but he's in I think he might be a Teamster. But he has kept all of those. You don't have to keep working. He's not collecting insurance. He's not getting any pay, but he pays his dues every year. But for him, it makes sense because he can go to the mixers, anytime the Atlanta PGA has a mixer, he can go in and hobnob with everybody and meet new producers, remind them that they exist, whatever. So for him, it's a business expense and marketing and networking.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, so talking about those features, let's just dive into the list of Best Picture nominees and talk through what everybody's favorites are, what they've seen, what they haven't seen, and what they liked the most out of what they've seen. Jan, what would you say would be your favorite on the list?
Yeah, I think honestly, out of all of them, I really love Top Gun. And I really loved Everything Everywhere All at Once. Elvis I thought would be my favorite because I really love Baz Luhrmann. But Everything Everywhere All at Once really spoke to me just in terms of, as a movie, kind of correlating with some of the things that I want to do as a director, which is kind of, especially the messaging, that the husband was like considered not important, and if she would have been with somebody else, what that life would have looked like. Because I love anything time travel, sci-fi, that kind of stuff. But for them to draw in the parallels of love when she, like, the storyline with her daughter and like hugging her daughter at the end, or her husband being the one to save them in a dramatic moment because of his love. I think because that movie, listen, I understand that it's stereotypical of me to be like, love, that's why I love the movie, But I mean, it just did such a good job of interweaving what I think is very important about life and about relationships into a story that had all of the elements that I love. So I really love that movie. So, I know there are others that are really great for different reasons, but to me, aside from Top Gun, even though I don't think Top Gun should have been nominated for Best Picture, but there's something, I won't say underdogish about it.
I wouldn't say that either. Not even a little bit.
I was just saying, like, because people are like, what? That's an action movie and this and this. There's something about kind of that, not old Hollywood, but that blockbuster, like a blockbuster movie got nominated for an Oscar. I don't know. I think there's something cool about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with an action film being nominated for Best Picture. As far as I'm concerned, Everything Everywhere All at Once was an action film, and throughout a lot of it.
There's a lot of different things.
It's a lot of things. That movie is everything. It's incredible, and I think that's what spoke to me. Is it really did an incredible job of speaking to, for me personally, so many of the things that I just am interested in on a philosophical level. Really speaking to that existential element, the philosophical aspects of what what parallel universes can tell us about our where we find ourselves in the current moment, and then just building on everything that movies can really offer in terms of the action, the romance, the perspectives. I mean, it just was an incredible kind of tour de force. So that's easily my favorite film from last year for sure. I'm excited that it was nominated because that it's being recognized, I would say. because I don't think that it didn't have like a huge release like a Top Gun, or Elvis or some
Avatar,
of these
yeah.
other films, or Avatar, exactly. So it definitely got a huge boost, I think, from the recognition that came after the fact as a result of it being nominated. Similar to Women Talking, like that movie like got $40,000 its opening weekend. So I think those kind of films, as Linda said, definitely deserve the chance to kind of have another look.
And maybe that's why I liked it, because it had like Good Will Hunting obviously was less than that, but like that idea of audiences discovering something that's not necessarily on your radar, but it can change your whole life and trajectory as a movie watcher, of how you can relate and put yourself there, and it changes your outlook on life. I think those movies to me are very powerful,
For sure. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Everything was
I
one of those
hated
films
it.
that changed my perspective on life.
Linda
You
said
hated
she
everything
Which one?
everywhere all at once?
Why did you hate it?
I can't, I need to watch it again because I know I was not paying attention. And I love the fact that it was recognized because it was unusual.
Yeah.
And I think the recognition is important and will allow other people to take risks, because nobody takes risks anymore. They just make Top Gun 50 for the next 50 years. Fast and Furious 17.
Yeah.
Everything is
yeah.
going to be a remake, right?
Yeah.
But
The
I could
franchises.
not, I was so excited to watch that movie. So excited. And I just was like, it was too much. It was too much.
Ooh.
And
Ooh.
JD felt the same way. He was just like,
Ooh.
it was too much. And I want to watch it again. I have had the DVD sitting here on my floor
Good.
now since, I don't know, for probably, I think it was probably one of the first batches I got. So I've probably had it since, I don't know, November, and I just can't bring myself to watch it again.
And just to
That's super
clarify,
interesting.
for everyone, because she didn't get to say this, Linda is in the PGA and they get screeners for films. And so
Yes.
she's got all the screeners and has
I get like
watched
probably
these.
50 of them.
Yeah. And has
Yeah.
watched these movies before the nominations came out. So just to
Yeah.
drop that in there.
I'd be super, super interested to see what a rewatch would look like for you. If you would have a different opinion on it. Did you see it in the theater originally?
No, I
No.
saw it. I got the screener and I
Yeah.
saw it.
In-
Because I
in
was
the-
so excited to see it. And so I have to disagree with the idea that like a lot of people didn't know about it and it was after the fact that awards happened. Like people have been talking about that movie
In the
minute
industry.
it came out.
In the industry.
Yeah,
I
but
think.
people in the industry are also all over social media
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about it, and they have friends outside of the industry. So that buzz has been going on for quite some time.
But
unlike
it's-
something like Women Talking, where nobody was talking about it. You saw some ads, but also different topic. But yeah, I mean, I want to see it. Here's my problem. I don't watch a lot of movies twice, and if you don't get my attention, like it's not happening.
Ooh,
And
there's something cool to that. There's something cool to that.
I mean, there's some movies that I've watched a billion times.
Yeah,
Very
studying.
few, but
Yeah.
there's some. But I was like, the other thing is they're so long. Like it's a 2.5 hour fucking commitment. Now in COVID times, I want to be if I'm trapped in my house and I can't go anywhere for 2.5 hours, like you bet your butt I want 2.5 hours of entertainment. But now I don't have 2.5 hours of my life to give you twice.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast, because we know how much your time means to you.
That's right. All right. So Everything Everywhere All at Once
Yeah.
was not going to top the list for you. Is there a movie on the list that did appeal to you, one that kind of touched you in any way?
There wasn't?
And I need to pull out while you talk, Jan. I need to pull up the list again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll talk. Well, I know that
Wait a minute. Wait.
Doing
Because
good, doing
Jan
good.
and I did ours. Linda doesn't have one so far. Hey, Aaron, what would top your
I'm
list from
avoiding
the
it. I'm
nominees?
avoiding it because I think
No,
this
let's
is
get
where
it.
like sometimes I'm super articulate and I double down on my perspective, but in this particular situation, I feel like the creative side of me splits into multiple personality disorder, because I think that for me, when I look at this list, all of the films potentially there's some I haven't seen. I haven't seen Elvis. I haven't seen Tar. There's a few that I haven't taken the time. But as a whole, like there's different facets for each, and I can't decide which. So for example, Everything Everywhere All at Once, I believe, shook the industry. I believe it's a film that's never been made before. And I believe in the content craziness that we are in today, something about it is the future of the industry. Something about it is the future of editing, is the future of entertainment. I didn't look at Instagram once the whole time I was watching the damn film. It captivated me in such a way that I kept saying, what the hell is going on? And then it shook me, and I didn't see my emotions coming at the end. It was exciting. It had a lot of raw elements. It didn't have too much special effects. It didn't feel like too much action. It was intriguing and insightful. So, but I don't know that it was my favorite, and I don't know whether that's because of distance or whether I just recognize that it's the future and it's a placeholder. Because to me, what also resonated with me was Quiet on the Western Front. But I feel like it's a traditional storytelling and beauty and artistry of filmmaking that I resonate with, that resonates with the films back to the 90s and stuff that I absolutely love. And so it's like a harken backward. But then the producer in me looks at Top Gun, and as much as I disagree with the story elements, I think, grab that $1 billion bag. You know what I mean? Best film. You made the money. You know? And so it's like Spielberg saying you save the industry if that's legitimate. Like, I kind of agree with that. It's like, we need Hollywood. We need to take American films and, like, because, like, there's some amazing films coming out of multiple countries now. And that's me. I apologize. And so I look at like, the competition, and Top Gun's great. Producer side says cool, money. But then I look at like films like the 30-minute animation. I always get that title wrong. It's long. The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse.
Correct.
And I think that 30-minute cartoon with very unique animational elements to it changed my life. And I feel like that's also the story that everyone needs to watch. I feel like it should be mandatory. You know what I mean? I feel like it should be the baseline of the morals of how we tell stories. And so it's weird when we talk about, like, what should win Best Picture. Like, I get torn in the different facets of me as a filmmaker and how I approach things and whatever. But I think in a sense, like it goes back. I can't decide. I literally cannot. Like, I'm just like, each one of these films, it takes a different part, and I think that's part of what being a producer is being open to these different genres and different elements, and then looking at the industry and loving all of it. And like, I think if I really had to gamble, no, I can't even decide.
No, you don't
I'm
have to.
just avoiding
Yeah.
it. I've just been avoiding it.
I know
why
this
did
will
you-
win.
What's that?
I'm pretty sure Everything Everywhere All at Once will win. You know, running through the list, I think I don't have a favorite because I haven't seen all of them. But JD has seen a bunch of them, and I know how he talks about film and whether it's really good or not. So he was not I mean, we both think everything will and probably should win. It has the momentum going, lots of great performances. I think everybody's going to vote for that. Elvis, I don't care about Elvis. I lived through Elvis. I didn't like Elvis. He just stole black culture and moved his hips as a white boy. So he's off my list. Women talking, like, do I want to sit around? I already have my own issues with religion and men. And now I have to sit around and hear all of these women talk about how they're going to get past the rape of the men they trust. Don't want to see it. You know, Top Gun, that's nostalgia. The reason it made so much money at the box office, even if it was shitty footage, it still would have done well because that is nostalgia. It is Tom Cruise. It had money behind it. Not a great movie, but again, great production.
Yes.
All Quiet on the Western Front, that is JD's pick. That is his favorite movie. And he's seen most of them. I don't like war films, but I will probably see that because of all of the things that you taught, the artistry, the old school feel. I'll probably watch that. You know, Avatar. I haven't seen that yet. I liked the first Avatar movie, but the story was too simple. But the story had to be that simple for your brain to process
True.
what was happening because we had never seen anything like that before. JD, I did not go to see Avatar at Christmas. JD took his entire family as like a Christmas present, and I wanted him to spend time with all of his cousins. So I stayed back and let them do that. But I think Avatar is probably, just from the story alone, talk about 10 years to make the film. Talk about the future of film. I mean, he's literally creating the cameras and the post equipment and a new wave of technology that is going to be the real wave of the future from a technology standpoint.
Yeah.
I think Avatar is up there. Banshees, JD couldn't get through it. I don't want to sit and watch two cranky old dudes like cutting off fingers because they're arguing about stupid shit. Don't need to see that. Fablemans, haven't seen it. Would like to see it. It's been sitting here, was going to watch it yesterday, but did not. I just didn't move all day and I didn't want to focus my attention on anything. I don't think it's best picture. I think, again, it is that nostalgia, that Spielberg nostalgia, but I think it's probably a decent movie. Tar, I do want to see, although I know that character is problematic from her history, but I do love conductors and I'm fascinated by that. So I want to see that. Triangle of Sadness, I watched till they got on the boat and I just couldn't get any farther. I was like, I want to watch
Until
it.
they got on the boat.
And then I was just like, I want to watch more of this, but it was a struggle to get that far. I was like, I have so many better things to do with my time. And yeah, so if I had to pick, having not watched anything, like a typical Oscar voter that is just going off of feeling and what I think and what I hear, I think All Quiet, Avatar, Fableman are probably up there. And then the rest of them, meh.
So I'll be the devil's advocate about Avatar because I didn't like the first film when it came out. I remember watching it, and I watched it in 3D, I think, too, and was, I thought the visuals were compelling, but the story to me was certainly a retread of just any number of films. Like I remember seeing. It was an animated film from, I think, maybe the early to mid 90s. That was the same story essentially. And
well, there are only 7 stories in the world.
Sure, but I mean, we've seen that one, and I think we've seen that one in almost that exact form. This was just like a 3D animated version of it with live action elements kind of mixed into it. So I didn't feel like it deserved. It warranted a sequel. And I think the advancement of the technology, I mean, that's something that this industry is always doing. This industry is one of the most innovative from a technological standpoint than any industry, especially one that deals with entertainment. So I'm always inspired by that aspect of it, but not if it doesn't really do much to further the actual storytelling aspects, which Everything Everywhere All at Once really does, in my opinion. And like I said, I didn't see Avatar. I don't plan on seeing Avatar, but that one to me I've never been like on that train. I never got on that train after seeing the first one. So I would probably be disappointed if that were to win Best Picture, especially over Everything All at Once. I got to see I just started watching All Quiet on the Western Front after having a conversation with Hayram, who raved about it. And just that opening sequence, the first like 13 minutes is what I was able to get through before jumping on the podcast today, is incredible. From it's certainly a war film, but something about the perspective that it gives, especially in stark contrast to 1917, which came out last year, right? I think, or the year before, where that also was a World War I film, but with the specific kind of gimmick of showing you the experience from one long or 2 long takes. Which I just was not compelled by at all. So this was like a really interesting and stark contrast from the perspective of seeing a huge world event from 2 different filmmaking perspectives. And All Quiet on the Western Front, just in that first couple of sequences, really took the kind of angle that I felt like that event deserved, which is giving you a little bit of a broader perspective. Because I felt like it was a huge missed opportunity in 1917 to explore on a really big scale such an incredibly impactful global event in human history from one person's perspective, the entire film, and throw on the gimmick from all of the selling of the film, all the trailers, all the discussion around it about it being one long take. That to me was a huge disservice to what that event meant to the world and all the history around it. So that to me was a huge mistake in terms of what I felt was a compelling story.
Yeah, let me talk about All Quiet on the Western Front, because I feel
Please.
like I feel like it's the way I would describe it is a cinematographer's dream. Like, there is war films that have been done, and then there's movies like War Horse where every couple scenes you go, that's beautiful, thank you, Spielberg, wow, you know what I mean? But then this particular film I avoided for a few months, or however long it's been out, I was like avoiding it. I was like, well, it's a war movie. I've seen war movies. There's, they come out every couple of years, and I enjoy them. As like there's an intrigue there. World War One. I find out, like, my company's named after a World War One fighter plane. Like, I definitely love the history of it. I am fascinated by all of it. But this one sucked me in so quick because, dare I say, every frame of that film is a work of art. Like you could just pause it in a moment and go, God damn, that's beautiful. How is death and war so beautifully portrayed? And the storyline is very hard. It is not an easy ride, and it hurts your mind, and it makes you think. And they did it so much justice. There's no like real heroes in war. It's like war is ugly as hell. But they packaged it in such a way that was so beautiful and so intentional that it was just like there was no frame left untouched by someone who really freaking cared. And then the pacing and the way that it changed and the way the dialogue was and how spot on the acting was. And then even I think it had this beautiful, what I would say, dare I say, so when we talk about telling Black stories and women's stories and finding more stories to tell and more voices, because there's so many worthy stories out there in the world, and starting to tell more global stories from different perspectives, and having the Germans' perspective side, and walking through the frailty of that war and the difficulty they were experiencing as a country, and the weird empathy I felt as one human being to another human being. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of like, it was shifting my worldview. And at the end of the movie, I don't want to, do too many spoilers. It stops you. And I was just left thinking. I couldn't stop thinking about it, because the beauty and the way that it was portrayed infiltrated my body and mind. It was like I couldn't stop looking at how beautiful this war was. And I was like, why am I thinking that? Am I out of my mind? You know what I mean? And I mean, for anyone who's seen it, like, there are so many frames where if you just pause and you think, how did they execute? What were the set deck people doing? What is the language? And it wasn't hiding any of the traditional language of filmmaking. There was points where it was just, obviously we're moving along smooth with a camera, a steady cam. Boom, handheld, because you should feel tension right now, and we're not hiding it in any way. This is raw and upfront, so you can experience it. And I was absolutely. I was, every time I complain about something like Top Gun, I'm waiting for a film like Quiet on the Western Front, because
and that's why it should be Best Picture. But
exactly.
I mean, I think if you look at any of those from everyone I've talked to who have watched all the movies, honestly, that's the one that I think should win, that is the Best Picture.
God, it's such a good use of
Everything
budget.
Everywhere All at Once is what's going to win. I would be shocked. I mean, sometimes the Oscars are a spoiler and something else pops up. Oscar voters are different than everybody else, but I have a feeling that that's the one that should win, but it won't. And I actually want to see that. Out of all of these, the only things I want to see are All Quiet on the West. I do want to see Avatar because I want to see how much better the story is. And JD thought the story was really good, and that was one of his top picks for the year. And then I want to see Fabelmans, and eventually I'll get around to Tar because I will get that DVD.
Here's a question for you. So with these 50 films, like, because it doesn't sound like it, but do you enjoy this process, or do you line it in such a way that you know?
No. So here's what I used to enjoy. Okay. So when the Oscars were earlier before COVID, you would get almost all of the screeners by Thanksgiving. And traditionally, JD was out of town a lot of times working, especially in LA, for Thanksgiving. So I would fly out, and for the 4 days he'd have off, we would rent a little house. We'd have a hot tub. We'd have a fireplace. I would hit up the local seafood store. I would cook like this massive extravaganza of food for 4 days. And we would cozy up next to a fire, and we would watch movies all day and eat and drink and have a grand old time. And that's what we would do. And that I loved. The problem has become so many of these things are heavy dramas. Like, do any of us really long to see women talking? And it's an important story. Like, the fact that something like that could happen and happens all the time in these cults is disgusting. And that is something that we should pay attention to. I don't want to see it. I want to see Danielle Detweiler's performance, but I don't want to see that story again. I know that story because, when I went to school, we actually taught history. But there's so many heavy dramas. Like, we look forward what are the animated tales? Because the animations are usually really great and are fun and uplifting, but like the dramas are what, it's like, oh, it's so heavy. Like, do we just want to sit around for 4 days and be depressed? Because that's what I feel like happens with most of these pictures. Because, you're not supposed to go for the crowd pleaser, like the top.
Yeah, exactly.
It's supposed to be what is the most important, story that really moves you. And that has to be a drama. But I'm dramaed out, man.
I think that would be a really good. I think that's a really good case for Everything Everywhere All at Once, because it doesn't fit into that box of a typical kind of Oscar baiting heavy drama picture, right? Because it does so many things. It's definitely the film that made me laugh out loud the most in the theater when I saw it. Like at the strangest things. I mean, the moment where it's just it's the mom and the daughter as rocks looking out over that landscape. I was rolling. Shit was so. Because again, it was one of those things that spoke directly to me in terms of just my perspective on life and the world and existentialism, all that kind of stuff. So that kind of thing, from a philosophical standpoint, made me laugh really, really hard. But also, just even like the sight gags. The sight gags were incredible.
Like the claw, the lobster hand.
The claw. The dildo stuff. Like that shit was hilarious. It was just so. The timing was phenomenal. But so much of it was, Jamie Lee Curtis's performance was phenomenal. But so much of it, is all very tongue in cheek. But it wasn't like slapsticky. It was all, everybody was, these are like heavy hitting actors that are portraying these characters in this film and taking it really, really seriously, but with that tongue-in-cheek kind of perspective that made it fun, entertaining, while also substantive, which is what I think makes it so compelling to me, is that I was never in a position where I knew what was going to happen. It was always something unexpected. And in fact, they set it up from a story perspective in such a way where the character literally had to do something completely off the wall in order to progress to progress the story. Like they set it up that way. So intentionally they made it so that you could not imagine what the next thing was going to be, the next act that she had to do in order to kind of free herself from that moment of peril, which was a stroke of genius as far as I'm concerned, because it really gave them license to just do anything, and they went there, and it was super fun to watch and just really unexpected.
So on that note, that was great, Chris. On that note, because we think that might win Best Picture, I don't know. We definitely want to continue this conversation over into the after party, since we have Linda here as our guest to talk about being a producer, to talk about what it takes to produce, certain films. And so, Linda, thank you so much for being here. We'll all watch the Oscars and see which one of our picks win. Yes,
no, I definitely won't. No, I definitely will not.
All of you are liars.
Not me. I will definitely not be watching
that weird film, but don't even bother to show up to celebrate the weird film.
Nope.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Linda, for that perspective. We love you. And
yes, we love having you on.
Yeah. And
thanks for coming back.
Mm-hmm. Until next time.
Ah.
Goodbye.
Bye, listeners.